Have you ever been caught in that moment when someone says something so cutting, so unfair, that you can literally feel your heartbeat quicken? The room falls silent. Every eye turns to you, waiting to see what you'll do next. Your mind races. Sharp words hover on the edge of your tongue, begging to be unleashed. But this is the test, the kind that separates those ruled by impulse from those ruled by wisdom. Because true power isn't in the loudest voice or the quickest comeback. It's in the pause. In that single breath between reaction and response, where your mind decides who's really in control, your emotions or your character. The ancient Stoics understood this better than anyone. They knew that victory in any confrontation doesn't come from crushing the other person. It comes from mastering yourself. The wise don't shout to be heard. They speak calmly and the world listens. They win without wounding. They silence without screaming. This isn't about backing down or being passive. It's about strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. I'm not here to teach you how to argue better or destroy someone with clever words. I'm here to show you how to protect your peace, preserve your dignity, and sometimes turn tension into quiet respect. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best answer to anger is silence." And he didn't mean silence as weakness, but as strategy, because silence isn't the absence of power. It's the proof of it. Today we'll explore 5 powerful Stoic responses that can calm any storm and disarm any aggressor. Each one is simple but transformative. And the third? It's my favorite, because it flips an attack back on itself, without you having to say anything cruel. So stay with me till the end, because by the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to stay calm under fire and come out stronger for it. Now, let's begin with response number 1. I see your point. Help me understand your reasoning. You see, the greatest weapon against hostility isn't a sharper tongue, it's curiosity. When someone attacks your ideas or questions your competence, their goal is simple: to drag you into their emotional arena. But when you respond with calm curiosity instead of defense, you shift the entire balance of power. I remember a tense team meeting years ago. I'd spent weeks crafting a proposal, researched data late nights. In the middle of presenting, one colleague abruptly cut me off and said, "You're completely out of touch with reality. You clearly don't understand the market." For a second, my face burned. My chest tightened. My instincts screamed to defend myself, to prove him wrong. But instead, I took a deep breath and said, "I see your point, David. Can you help me understand your reasoning? Which part seems unrealistic to you?" The entire room went still. All eyes turned to him. And then the magic of silence did its work. He began to stumble. "Well, generally speaking," he tried to find specifics but couldn't. A few moments later, he admitted he hadn't even read the full proposal. He was reacting, not reasoning. That's the beauty of this response. It forces emotion to meet logic. Most people who attack impulsively have no real substance behind their words. When you calmly ask them to clarify, they're suddenly required to think, and that's where the fire of anger fades. Socrates, whom the Stoics admired deeply, once said, "The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing." This response reflects that same humility. You're not attacking, you're inviting truth to the surface. You may even learn something, but more often you reveal that the other person has nothing meaningful to stand on. And just like that, you've shifted the energy. You're no longer the target, you're the guide of the conversation. You've turned conflict into dialogue. Psychologically, this works because anger thrives in chaos, not in clarity. When you bring reason into the room, you take away its oxygen. So when someone throws vague accusations, "You're unrealistic, you're naive, you don't get it," don't fight back. Ask questions. Let your calm curiosity become the mirror that shows them their own reflection. Because in that moment, you're no longer trying to win, you already have. In the last part, we learned that asking calm, logical questions can completely shift a conversation. But what happens when, after asking for clarity, you realize they're actually right? When their criticism isn't baseless noise, but truth staring you in the face. That's where true maturity is tested. Sometimes the most powerful way to win isn't by defending yourself, it's by agreeing strategically. Which brings us to response number 2. You're absolutely right, and here's what I'm going to do about it. It might sound counterintuitive, even risky, but sometimes the fastest path to victory is not through resistance, it's through responsibility. When someone points out a real flaw, instead of fighting back or explaining it away, you take ownership. You acknowledge the truth, then immediately turn that truth into action. Because here's the thing, most people don't actually want an argument. They want reassurance that their concerns matter. And when you respond with calm acceptance and a plan, you remove their ammunition before the battle even begins. I learned this lesson the hard way, in a client meeting I'll never forget. We'd been working with that client for about 6 months, when during a progress review he suddenly said, in front of everyone, "Your team has missed the deadline again. This is becoming a serious problem, and frankly, it's making us question your reliability." The room went still. My team looked at me nervously, probably expecting me to list every valid reason for the delay. Scope changes, resource shortages, technical complications. And yes, those reasons were real. But as those excuses formed in my mind, I realized something. Explaining wouldn't change how he felt. So instead I took a breath, looked him straight in the eye and said, "You're absolutely right. And here's what I'm going to do about it." Then I laid it out clearly. I'm implementing a new project tracking system this week for better visibility on potential delays. You'll also get weekly progress updates every Friday, so there will never be surprises again. And for this current project, I'm personally taking ownership to ensure we hit the revised deadline we agree on today. The shift in the room was instant, almost visible. The client's rigid posture softened. His frustration dissolved into curiosity. Instead of continuing to question our competence, he started asking thoughtful questions about the new system. Within minutes, what began as confrontation turned into collaboration. We were no longer on opposite sides of the table. We were partners again, working toward a shared goal. Why did this response work so effectively? Because when people criticize, they're usually seeking one of two outcomes. Either they want to watch you squirm and defend yourself, proving their doubts right, or they want to see you care enough to fix the problem. When you choose the second path, you instantly change the story. You stop being the target of criticism and become the solution itself. This is where real psychological power lies, because people expect defensiveness. They prepare for excuses, blame shifting, long explanations. But when you calmly accept the issue and respond with concrete action, it breaks their entire script. It also shows something far greater than words ever could: leadership. True leadership doesn't hide behind pride. It transforms criticism into progress. As Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And in that moment, taking responsibility became my philosophy in action. Owning your mistakes doesn't make you weaker. It makes you credible. It tells the world that you value growth over ego. But here's the crucial reminder. This response only works when the criticism is fair and valid. If someone is attacking you over things beyond your control, or twisting the truth to provoke you, don't use it. The power of this approach comes from authentic accountability, not blind submission. When done right, it's completely disarming. It strips away the critic's reason for anger, because you've already given them what they wanted: resolution. And once you do, there's nothing left to fight about. The conflict dissolves, replaced by respect. More often than not, the very person who criticized you becomes your strongest ally. Why? Because you showed them something rare: humility paired with action. You listened, you acted, and you grew. But of course, not every attack comes from a place of truth. Some people aren't looking for solutions. They're looking for reaction. And when that happens, you'll need an entirely different kind of strength. Which brings us to response number 3. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think of it? In the previous part, we learned that humility paired with action can turn critics into allies. But what about those moments when someone doesn't want resolution, when they simply want to provoke you? That's when you meet arrogance not with anger, but with graceful curiosity. Which brings us to response number 3. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think of it? This simple line forces people into a corner they never expected, to either admit they were being unreasonable or expose the weakness in their own argument. I once saw this used with masterful precision at a dinner party last year. A friend of mine, let's call her Rachel, was sitting beside me. She's a freelance graphic designer, a woman who's spent over a decade building her own business from the ground up. She's talented, respected, and quietly confident. During the evening, someone new at the table, a man she had just met, decided to make a snide remark. "Freelancing must be nice," he said with a smirk. "Getting paid to play around on a computer all day. No real responsibility, right?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Everyone at the table froze. You could feel the sting of that insult ripple through the room. Rachel could have easily fired back. She could have listed her credentials, her client roster, the sleepless nights, the deadlines, the constant hustle that freelancers know all too well. But she didn't. Instead, she smiled genuinely and said calmly, "That's an interesting perspective. What made you think of that?" The man blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "Well, he stuttered, searching for words that wouldn't make him sound petty or ignorant. Finally, he muttered, "I guess I don't really know what freelance design work involves," and just like that, the mask fell. Everyone at the table saw the truth. He wasn't making an observation. He was revealing his own prejudice. That's the brilliance of this response. It looks harmless, even polite, but beneath the surface, it's pure mastery. It forces the other person to think about what they've just said, to examine their own bias under the light of reason. They think they're attacking you, but end up attacking themselves. You've simply handed them the rope, and they tie the knot on their own. The power of this approach lies in its innocence. You're not sarcastic. You're not combative. You're calm, curious, and genuinely asking for insight. But psychologically, your question flips the mirror toward them, revealing the emptiness of their argument. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This response is that quote in motion. While they try to pull you down to their level of bitterness or insecurity, you remain steady, composed, dignified, and quietly untouchable. The contrast between your poise and their pettiness becomes crystal clear to everyone watching. The key, however, lies in your tone. It must sound authentically curious, not mocking, not cold. If you sound sarcastic, the moment loses its magic. Let their own words expose them. Let silence do the heavy lifting. This technique works especially well with people who speak from assumption instead of knowledge, those who judge before they understand. And it's versatile. Whether it's a tense office meeting, a family dinner, or a casual social gathering, it always creates the same effect. One of two things will happen. Either they realize how unfair they've been and back down gracefully, or they double down, digging themselves deeper while everyone else can see how unreasonable they are. Either way, you win. Without ever raising your voice, because most people who make provocative comments don't actually understand why they're saying them. They're reacting from emotion, ego, or habit. But the moment you ask them to explain themselves, to trace the logic behind their words, the foundation of their argument collapses. Still, there are rare cases where even reason and curiosity can't reach them. Some people are determined to stay difficult, no matter how composed you remain. And when that happens, you'll need a response that's even more disarming. Which brings us to response number 4. I appreciate you sharing that with me, because nothing diffuses hostility quite like unexpected gratitude. In the last part, we saw how gratitude can melt away hostility, how a few calm words like, "I appreciate you sharing that with me," can turn confrontation into connection. And that's exactly what happened next. My neighbor's shoulders dropped, his voice softened. And in that moment, we weren't two people on opposite sides of a problem anymore. We were simply neighbors, trying to solve something together. He began suggesting training techniques, sharing stories about his own dogs, even recommending a local trainer who had helped his sister. What began as an angry standoff ended with us exchanging phone numbers so he could text me if the barking happened again. That's the quiet brilliance of this response. When people approach you with complaints, they expect defensiveness. They've already imagined the argument in their heads, the excuses, the counterattacks, the tension. But when you respond with genuine gratitude, you interrupt that script completely. Their mind doesn't know what to do with calmness. It's disarmed by it. Psychologically, this works because anger often hides something deeper: frustration, fear, or a sense of powerlessness. When someone lashes out, they're usually saying, "I feel unheard." And by thanking them, by recognizing their courage to speak up, you validate that emotion without rewarding their aggression. It's a subtle shift, but it transforms them from an adversary into an unexpected ally. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." This kind of response ends conflict and begins cooperation. It shows emotional security, the quiet strength to receive feedback even when it's poorly delivered. You're not shrinking back. You're simply choosing not to mirror their chaos. The key, though, is discernment. You must know when someone is being rude because they're hurt, and when they're being cruel just to cause harm. Use this approach only with the first kind, the ones whose delivery is poor, but whose intention is still honest. Your gratitude acknowledges their good intention, while completely ignoring their bad tone and the result. People often rise to meet the level of respect you offer them. When you treat someone as rational, they start behaving rationally. When you see them as capable of reason and kindness, they're far more likely to live up to that image. That same neighbor who once stormed into my yard became one of my most helpful allies. He'd text me updates, check on the progress, and even share small wins when my dog improved. It was almost unbelievable how a few calm words could transform resentment into partnership. You'll be amazed how quickly hostility fades when someone feels truly heard and appreciated. It's the difference between making an enemy and making an ally over the exact same issue. The situation doesn't change, your response does. And that changes everything. But of course, there are moments when no response seems to work. When no matter how calm, kind, or composed you remain, the other person is determined to be difficult. They're not looking for peace, they're looking for power. And that's when you need the most powerful response of all. Response number 5. Silent pause. And thank you for that insight. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. When someone throws an outrageous or hurtful comment your way, you don't react immediately. You stop, you breathe, you meet their eyes, and then, after a few quiet seconds that feel much longer than they are, you simply say, "Thank you for that insight." It's in that pause, the silence between their words and your calm reply, that everything shifts. People start to hear what was actually said. The weight of their own words hangs heavy in the air, while your composure becomes impossible to ignore. You haven't attacked, you haven't defended. You've simply chosen to rise above the noise. I'll never forget when this exact response saved my reputation during a business presentation about 3 years ago. I was pitching a new marketing strategy to a room filled with potential partners, including several direct competitors. Everything was going smoothly, until one of them, clearly feeling threatened, decided to take a shot. Right in the middle of my presentation, he interrupted me and said loudly, "I'm not sure we can trust marketing advice from someone with such obviously limited experience in this field. Maybe we should hear from someone who actually knows what they're talking about." The room froze. You could feel the tension, every pair of eyes shifting between us. It wasn't just a comment, it was a public attempt to humiliate me. For a moment, my instincts screamed to fire back, to list my credentials, to prove my worth. But I didn't. I stopped speaking, held his gaze for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 seconds, and said, calmly and clearly, "Thank you for that insight." Then I stayed silent, and the silence that followed said everything. From the last scene, you can probably imagine the silence that followed my calm reply. It wasn't empty, it was powerful. His words hung in the air like a bitter echo, and everyone in the room could feel it. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked away. Others glanced at him with quiet disbelief. A few even looked embarrassed for him. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to explain, justify, or retaliate. The contrast between his aggression and my composure spoke louder than anything I could have said. That single pause, the one that let his words linger, showed everyone exactly who he was, and who I chose to be. From that point forward, the energy in the room shifted entirely. The rest of the presentation flowed effortlessly. And when it was over, several people approached me privately to apologize for his behavior. They told me how much they respected the way I handled the situation. Even more surprisingly, the committee later awarded us the contract. Partly because, as they admitted, his outburst revealed a lack of professionalism, while calm restraint revealed true leadership. That's the quiet magic of the pause. It gives space for reflection, for truth, for character to surface. Those few seconds allow people to process what was actually said and recognize how inappropriate it was. Without that pause, your thank you might sound automatic or sarcastic. But with it, you demonstrate complete emotional control. Your tone matters. Your calm gratitude should sound sincere, never mocking. You're not trying to humiliate them. You're showing grace under fire so clearly that their attack looks petty by comparison. You're taking the high road so visibly that everyone else can see the difference between your dignity and their insecurity. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This response embodies that truth perfectly. While others let their worst impulses take control, you remain unmoved, centered. That's real strength. Mastery over yourself when everything around you invites chaos. This response is especially powerful in group settings, because when people witness composure beside aggression, they don't remember who shouted the loudest. They remember who stayed calm. It flips the focus completely. The conversation stops being about the insult and starts being about the person who delivered it. Suddenly, everyone is no longer judging your worth. They're questioning their behavior. The person who attacked you is often left feeling small, even foolish, because they realize everyone saw their true character revealed. They expected you to react, to get angry, to argue, to stoop to their level. But when you didn't, you silently won the moment without ever needing to fight. And that's what makes this fifth response so profoundly Stoic. It's not about control over others, it's about control over yourself. When you choose grace over retaliation, patience over pride, and calm over chaos, you display a kind of strength that doesn't need to be announced. It's felt. It's respected. All 5 of these responses share one simple truth. They keep you in control of yourself while letting others reveal who they truly are. That's the essence of Stoic wisdom. Not in winning arguments, but in maintaining your peace, your dignity, your center, no matter how others behave. Remember, the goal isn't to defeat people in conversation. It's to preserve your inner calm and, when possible, turn conflict into understanding. Because when you respond with wisdom instead of emotion, you don't just win the moment. You earn something much greater, respect. And sometimes that quiet respect becomes the beginning of real connection. The ancient Stoics understood something we often forget. Your reaction defines you far more than what happens to you. True strength isn't the sharpest comeback or the loudest voice. It's the ability to stay calm when provoked, to remain kind when tested, and to walk away when peace means more than pride. If this message resonated with you, if it helped you feel calmer, wiser, or more confident in how you handle conflict, then take a second to share it with someone who might need it today. And if you'd like to keep growing stronger, quieter, and wiser together, make sure you subscribe to Stoic Havenway. Every week, we explore the timeless lessons that help you rise above noise, find clarity, and live with quiet strength. Thank you for watching, and remember, your responses reveal your character. So choose them wisely.